So as I said, we're going to talk about chronic stress and nervous system dysregulation. It's really important to me before I start talking about chronic stress and, issues with the nervous system and what can happen. I really want you to know what I personally mean when I'm talking about stress. So if you go and you Google what is the definition of stress, you're going to find that stress is anything that creates unbalance or some type of dysfunction in the body. And there are three primary types of stress: physical, mental, and emotional. And as we go through this presentation and I'm talking about what can cause your nervous system to be dysregulated, I'm going to talk about the different physical, mental, and emotional stressors that over time, cumulative, create this dysregulation. So we're going to kind of dive into what are these different physical, mental, and emotional stressors that cause these problems. But first, we're going to do a little bit of anatomy and physiology. And don't panic. It's not like, college or high school anatomy. It's not going to be that extreme. We're going to be just very focused, okay? So the two areas of the nervous system that we're going to primarily focus on today are going to be under the autonomic nervous system, okay? So the nervous system is broken down into two primary branches, the central and the peripheral nervous system. We know from, science and in school that the central nervous system is made up of the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral is all the nerves that go out. And then one of the branches of the nervous system is called the autonomic. And the way that you can remember autonomic is everything under the autonomic nervous system happens automatically. So it's not something like walking or lifting our arm that we have to actually think about. Everything that falls under the autonomic nervous system happens without us even thinking about it, without conscious control. And there are two branches in the autonomic or automatic nervous system. One is the parasympathetic nervous system. The other is the sympathetic nervous system. And I like to start with the sympathetic nervous system, kind of explaining these two branches first, because the actions of the sympathetic nervous system are what we are most familiar with, okay? So I want you to kind of imagine in your mind that you just got to work, you just got to your job, and you remembered that you left a portable heater on at home, some type of fire risk. You left the oven on, something like that, okay? So your life is not in danger immediately, right? But this is something that's going to kind of get you going because you're immediately thinking my house can burn down or this can happen or what about my animals and all those things. That is an activation of your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight. And anytime the sympathetic nervous system is activated, anytime our fight or flight comes on board, all through the body, things are happening. Our pupils are dilating, our heart rate increases, we get dilation of our airways in our lungs. We start to sweat a little bit, right? If you can think about that heater being on, maybe your house is going to catch on fire. I know my armpits would start sweating. I would start getting sweat all over my body. Your liver mobilizes something called glycogen, which is then converted to glucose. Because when your fight or flight system is online, your body is preparing to save your life. Your body is preparing to protect you from that danger. So it's going to need more glucose to go to your muscles in case you need to run for your life. Okay, we need glucose for our brain to function, for our muscles to function. So the liver stores this glycogen just all the time. And so when your fight or flight system is activated, it mobilizes the glycogen, it converts it to glucose and raises your blood sugar, regardless of when the last time you ate. It does not matter. Your blood sugar goes up when your fight or flight system is activated. Next, your digestive system, it goes to sleep, okay? When you're in fight or flight, your digestive system is turned off. No saliva, no production of stomach acid, no peristalsis, the movement of the small and the large intestine, all of that is stopped because you don't need to be digesting food when you're running for your life. Our adrenal glands, those stimulate the production of all of our stress hormones, cortisol, norepinephrine, epinephrine, our steroid hormones. The uterus, okay, this is kind of not every single time, but vaginal contraction, the squeezing of those pelvic floor muscles, the uterus itself, it will contract. A lot of women will experience severe cramping when they've spent years and years and years in that fight or flight state, in that hypervigilant state. They can have more severe uterine contractions. That's because the sympathetic nervous system stimulates the uterus and vagina to contract. Our urinary system, our bladder relaxes. And the reason why it relaxes is so we don't have the urge to go pee. Okay, we don't need to be going to, urinate in the middle of a time when we're running for our life. Okay, and the big thing to know is that when the sympathetic nervous system is activated, your body doesn't know, did you leave a heater on at your house or are you being chased by a tiger? And this is an evolutionary process that's happened that goes all the way back to caveman times during, when there were widespread famine and there, were predators that we were running from. Our sympathetic nervous system still acts as though we're in that time. So there's really no discernment in your body and your brain and all throughout, all of your organ systems as to whether or not this is a minor inconvenience or a big inconvenience. All of these things still happen, okay? And on the opposite, okay, because they are opposite of each other, is the parasympathetic nervous system, okay? And I'm going to try to bring my voice down, right? So we can think about how calming the parasympathetic nervous system is. This is our rest and restore. When the parasympathetic nervous system is activated by the vagus nerve, which is one of our cranial nerves, our body is saying, we are safe. We are not in danger. We can rest. We can restore. We can sleep. And so whenever the parasympathetic nervous system is activated, our pupils will constrict, our heart rate slows down, our airways go back to their normal size. They don't get a full constriction like you have asthma or wheezing or something. They just go back to their normal size. Our liver will stimulate the release of bile into the gallbladder. Bile is the digestive enzyme that breaks down fats. Okay, so that's produced when we're in that rest and restore. Our blood vessels will constrict back to normal size. Not over constrict like you have a blood pressure problem. That's not what it means. It just means back to a normal kind of everyday working size. Our digestive system comes online, so we're able to make saliva, we're able to swallow, the peristalsis of our esophagus is able to move food and drink down into our stomach is able to make stomach acid to break down the food that we've just eaten. All of our pancreatic enzymes are being produced, that bile that I just talked about, movement of the small intestine, movement of the large intestine, all that happens when our parasympathetic nervous system is online. Our uterus relaxes, okay? And our urinary system will get a little bit more active. Our bladder will get more active and we'll get an increase in our urinary output. Because when we're safe and we're in that rest and restore, that's a better time to need to go and urinate, okay? So these are the two systems. And the way that they should work, the way that they're intended to work, is they're meant to both be online and active almost all the time. It should be constantly going. And you can think about this sort of like your gas pedal and your brake in your car, okay? To speed things up, you hit the gas pedal. To slow things down, you do the brake. And they work together for you to drive safely. And so for the body to function as it's intended, you need both of these nervous systems to be working together, okay? So what can it look like if one branch of the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, is more active than the other? This is what can happen. It's called nervous system dysregulation. Because when the nervous system is regulated, both our sympathetic and parasympathetic system are working together in tandem, in partnership. When our sympathetic system kind of takes over and becomes the one that's online and in charge all the time, that's when you get that dysregulation. And you can start to have some of these symptoms like what are shown here. So things like irritable bowel syndrome that will cause diarrhea, constipation, changes to your menstrual cycles. You get an increase in lower abdominal fat. Anyone have issues with having a ring of fat that goes around the bottom, that tire? Yeah. Difficulty falling and staying asleep. Anyone waking up between 1 and 4 a.m.? That's nervous system dysregulation. Having skin issues, eczema, lots of acne. That can be caused by nervous system dysregulation. Trouble problem solving, having bruising issues, feeling exhausted all day long, and then 7 p.m. hits, boom, you've got your second wind and you're ready to go. That's what's called feeling wired and tired. That's nervous system dysregulation. Sugar cravings, muscle weakness, osteoporosis can come from this. Nausea, high blood sugar, because remember, when the fight or flight system's activated, that liver is raising our blood sugar. Persistent anxiety, reflux, indigestion, okay? Remember, the parasympathetic nervous system is what helps the GI tract to function as it's intended. So if we're just in fight or flight all the time, we can experience bloating, big abdominal bloating, diarrhea, constipation that I mentioned, reflux, nausea, in not properly digesting your food? Are you seeing whole pieces of food that's just completely undigested in your stool? This is why. High blood pressure, dizziness, excessive crying, moodiness, asthma. Asthma can come from this. Random bouts of rage, varicose veins, memory issues. So many things can come from a dysregulated nervous system. When that sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight, is the one that's in charge all the time, the body suffers. Yes, it's what protects us in times of danger. Yes, we would die without it. But when it's constantly activated all the time, the body starts to suffer. And all of these symptoms, all of these signs start to show up. So I know this is a presentation. I know I'm sharing my screen, but I'm going to read this to you because I think it's really important. This is a couple paragraphs that was written by one of my absolute favorite functional medicine doctors, Dr. Sarah Gottfried. And she talks a lot about nervous system dysregulation and specifically the HPA axis. So before I read this, I'm going to turn your attention over here to this graphic because I think it's important that we look at these different parts before we go through and read this, okay? So the main parts that I want you to focus on is the first one here is the hypothalamus. That is a small gland that's here in the brain. And just behind it is the pituitary gland. And these two are the master hormone regulators within the brain. And so if this is what's called the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, because the hypothalamus talks to the pituitary, which talks to the adrenal glands, okay? So the HPA axis is like a public announcement system in high school. The principal, your hypothalamus, tells the assistant principal, your pituitary, which is the boss of your adrenals, to make an announcement through the PA system throughout the body that goes to all the students, your cells, which interact with the cortisol, that's your stress hormones your adrenals make, and other mediators in the body. And under optimal circumstances, the HPA axis will induce the adrenal glands to increase cortisol production, and then via the feedback loop, okay, so the cortisol is raised in the bloodstream, it provides a feedback loop to the pituitary and the hypothalamus that inhibits further stimulation of the HPA axis, and everything can settle down until the next alert. But with overexposure to stress, the cortisol is so busy flooding the bloodstream that it doesn't remind the HPA axis to calm down. As a result, the HPA axis keeps signaling to the adrenals to keep churning out more and more cortisol. So the way that you can think about this is the hypothalamus is constantly scanning your environment, okay? And your hypothalamus is trained when you're a very small child in am I safe or unsafe? Safe or unsafe? That's what the hypothalamus is doing. Safe, unsafe, safe, unsafe, safe, unsafe. And if it's unsafe, if it detects any danger whatsoever, and remember, it doesn't discern between danger, okay? You forgot your kid's lunch, chased by a tiger, same signal, you're in danger. Tells the pituitary gland, hey, we're in danger. We need to activate our fight or flight system. The pituitary sends a hormone that signals to the adrenal glands, I need you to make stress hormones. Let's go. And it starts pumping out the cortisol, the norepinephrine, the epinephrine, and gets all of that revved up. And all of the things start happening that I talked about with the sympathetic nervous system. Everything speeds up. That's the gas pedal in your body. So what should happen is when that threat is over, okay, when you're no longer being chased by a tiger, what should happen is the hypothalamus goes, okay, this is over. Pituitary, turn these stress hormones off. We're done with this. Time to get back into rest and restore. That's what should happen. But often what happens is because we're in this like low simmer hypervigilant state all the time, because our lives are this constant influx of stimulation and low grade danger all the time, that feedback loop gets damaged. And over time, the body just starts to anticipate, you know what, we're in danger all the time, so we need to be on high alert all the time. And so then your body, even before you wake up in the morning, your body is preparing for that stress that it knows that you had yesterday, last week, and last month. All of that training of your hypothalamus that you're in danger trains your body to anticipate that. The body loves to automate things. It loves to automate. And so if you train your body that you're going to be stressed every day the minute your feet hit the floor, and you're not going to take any time to turn that off and activate your rest and restore, your body will keep you in this low simmer, hypervigilant, stressed state all day long. And this is how a lot of my patients that come to work with me, they have an impeccable diet. I mean, impeccable. They've been counting calories for years. They've been eating whole foods. They've tried all of these different diets, and yet they have a ring of fat around their midsection. They have pre-diabetes or diabetes, all this insulin resistance issues, and all of these brain fog, maybe depression, anxiety. This is what's going on. So I'm not treating them by, moving, doing things with their, I am doing things with their diet, but that's not my primary focus. It's not diet. It's not putting them on medications to treat their anxiety and depression. It's not putting them on medications to lower their blood sugar. I focus on turning that sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight, off. And if you ask any of my patients, they'll tell you, okay, the main thing that I focus on in the very first 4 weeks of working with every patient who enters my practice is retraining the body to activate the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system and get them out of that fight or flight hypervigilant state. And I will tell you, most of them fight me tooth and nail. They do not like it because most try to convince me that they're not in fight or flight all the time. Because what happens is when these stress hormones are circulating in our body, we sort of just get used to that's just kind of how we feel, on edge. Okay, we just kind of feel on edge all the time. But you start to not really pay attention to your heart rate, that its baseline now is 90 instead of 70 where it should be. Or that we're breathing 20, 25 times a minute instead of the 8 to 10, right? We start to lose sight of all of these messages our body is sending to us that signal we are in danger, okay? So let's jump into how in the heck did we get here? What happened that caused us to have a dysregulated nervous system? How did this happen? So first one, I like to start with this one because it usually comes as a shock to people. Over exercising, okay? We got to clear this up with exercise. Yes, everyone on the planet needs to be exercising. Everyone can benefit from moving their body. But what you need to understand is that when you are exercising to a point that your heart rate is greater than 100, you're increasing your respiratory rate, that is a physical stress on the body. And if you are spending 18 of your 24 hours a day in that fight or flight state, in that sympathetic nervous system, adding on a physical stress like high intensity exercise to that is only sending your nervous system higher. That's it. You're not getting the benefits of increasing your heart rate and bringing it down because you're jacking your system up and you're staying there, right? So a ton of my patients that come to me, they're doing 2-3 workouts a day. They're running straight from a workout to work, right? And then going to their second HIIT class. Can you see how that would overstimulate that sympathetic nervous system? It's just a cycle. You're just feeding it. And so you have to take into consideration, if you are not seeing the benefits that you should be getting from exercise, that is your body telling you that you need to slow down a little bit, okay? Over-exercising can make this worse. I promise, I see it all the time. So under-eating or a restrictive diet. So I know everyone's been taught, count calories, restrict, fast, do all these things, but you need to understand those are physical stress on the body as well. This part of our nervous system and being in that fight or flight and us turning off different parts of our body, remember that evolved back in caveman times during times of famine. The body learned that if this body that I'm in is not consuming enough calories, there must be a famine. There must not be enough food, and that is a danger. So we need to conserve energy. So this is what is called metabolic reprogramming. So what you do is you take your basic calories that you burn during the day, and when you restrict your calories over a long period of time, I'm not talking just a few days or even a month. I'm talking like, women are coming to me and they've been, eating 1,200 calories or less for literally 20 years. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. You have trained your body to function, to carry out its basic functions to keep you alive on less energy. Because the body is going to keep you alive, and it will reprioritize where those energy and nutrients go. And this is why caloric restriction under eating is not a long-term solution for reversing any of your health issues. There is a time and place for fasting. I do utilize fasting in my practice, but I have to make sure that someone's nervous system is regulated, balanced first. Very first, we do nervous system, then we can start bringing in some of these other, fasting techniques or, big changes to the nutrition plan. The next one usually surprises people. Lack of socialization. So there's actually a lot of research that's going on right now that shows people who socialize, who have a friend, not just their spouse or their children or immediate family members, but socializing with friends actually improves our longevity. It actually slows down our aging. It can reduce inflammation in the body. It balances out our hormones. So if you want to regulate your nervous system, you need to make time for your friends. Make time to socialize, even if it's just getting in our Facebook community every day and interacting with someone. Okay, you have to interact with others. That activates feel-good chemicals in the body, and it's going to help regulate your nervous system. You got to just trust me on this one, okay? So a diet of processed food. This is a physical stressor on the body. Highly processed foods have tons of inflammatory ingredients in them, preservatives, inflammatory oils, all these like seed oils that we should not be eating. Foods that are highly processed, they become sugar in the body very quickly. And that is a physical stress on the body. Your body perceives that as a physical stress. So maybe look at your processed food intake and you can reduce your stress on the body. Scrolling on social media. I know I just advocated for you getting in the Facebook group to socialize, but what I mean by scrolling on social media, this is one of the fastest ways to get that fight or flight system going, right? How many times are you on social media and you see an argument and you're reading through? It's like addictive, right? It gets your heart rate going, you get little hits of dopamine, and then you're sort of left just like, totally depleted. This is how that happens. And those constant hits of stimulating your brain, all you're doing is stimulating that hypothalamus over and over and over again. So I very often will prescribe to my patients a prescription. Delete TikTok from your phone. It doesn't have to be forever, okay? Once you start getting your nervous system regulated, once you learn how these things are affecting you and you have a little bit more control because you understand the why, then you're going to be able to use these things again, okay? But it's a slippery slope. It happens to me sometimes. I'll be talking on social media a lot about some event that we have coming up, and I can catch myself scrolling. Next thing I know, I'm exhausted, I'm hungry, I'm like craving sugar and desserts, and I'm feeling all depressed and out of it. And I'm like, oh my God. It's just from that constant hits of dopamine scrolling on social media, okay? Poor quality sleep. Okay, this is a huge one. Sleep is critical. I know you're hearing about it more and more. More people are talking about the implications of having poor quality sleep. Your nervous system needs you to have hours of deep sleep. So if you're not sleeping well, that is a physical stress on the body and mental and emotional because you're not able to reset at night. So you have to prioritize sleep routines, sleep hygiene. One of the fastest ways that you can improve the quality of your sleep and improve the quality of your nervous system is something called mouth taping. Okay, and I have talked about this a little bit on my social media. We may do, a webinar at some point about sleep and things that you can do it, but this is just a quick and easy thing that you can do, okay? And I know what you're thinking, right? You hear me say mouth taping, your mind immediately goes to the woman who was just kidnapped and has duct tape across her mouth so she can't talk and her mouth won't even open. That's not what I mean. What I'm talking about is a piece of tape that can go just up and down like this. It encourages the lips to remain closed. Because what we're finding is that the majority of people, almost everyone, when you're sleeping, the muscles in your face and your jaw relax, your mouth hangs open, and then you're partially breathing through your mouth. You're not exclusively breathing through your nose. And so when you get a recirculation of that carbon dioxide and that oxygen, and you're not getting nice, full inhales and exhales through your nose, it can cause a whole host of problems. And it actually is a physical stress on the body. So just very simple way, okay, 2 things that you can do today that are going to improve the quality of your sleep. 1, start mouth taping, okay? You can go, I'll share in the Facebook group after the webinar. The product I use is called Somnifix. It goes across the mouth this way, but it has a little hole in the middle so I can talk. My little boy, he's 7. We've been doing mouth taping with him since he was 6. He uses a single piece of tape that goes up and down, and he can still talk to me even when his lips are taped together. It's no big deal. If this feels overwhelming to you to even think about this, you can wear the mouth tape whenever you're doing your daily meditation. Okay, that's a quick and easy way to kind of get yourself used to it. The second thing that you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is start learning more about how to properly breathe and learning about what is actually going on when you breathe in the body. I'm obsessed with a book. I've been sharing it almost every single day. It's called Breath by James Nestor, B-R-E-A-T-H. You can find it on Amazon. I'll share that link too in the Facebook group. I highly recommend that every person read this book. It's fascinating. You need to understand the implications of your breathing. And they talk a lot about sleep in there and the importance of breathing through just our nose, in and out our nose, while we sleep. Okay, so I know I kind of went off on a tangent about sleep and breathing, but it's really important, and it's one of the easiest things that you can do to make a huge impact on your health and your nervous system tonight. Okay? Next thing that can cause nervous system dysregulation is trauma and pushing down emotions. Okay? Our body is meant to feel all of the emotions that we experience. Okay? The ones that we prefer, like happy, excited, joyful, and the ones that we label as bad, anger, irritability, moodiness. Okay, we're meant to experience all of them. And our culture right now really prioritizes only feeling the good emotions and sort of pushing the other ones aside and pretending like they don't exist. Okay, but what we're finding, and if you read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, The Body Keeps the Score, I'll share this one too, you'll learn about how an event that was traumatic to you when you were 4 years old can be creating physical disease in the body today as a full-fledged adult. It is because when you have unresolved trauma or unresolved emotions that you're not experiencing and letting yourself experience, this creates nervous system dysregulation. It creates a sense of being unsafe in the body. So, if you were 5 years old and you had some, really terrible traumatic event, or, you had maybe a dysfunctional parent who was, you were always on edge. You were always having to kind of be, walk on eggshells because you didn't want to get yelled at or screamed at. That teaches your nervous system to always be on high alert. And that can happen when you're a child. Yeah. So I highly recommend The Body Keeps the Score. You can learn about how these traumatic events, how to actually let yourself feel these emotions. Okay. Very often I prescribe for my patients to grieve, to let themselves grieve. If any of my patients have a grief-filled event that comes up, we put a pause on all of the kind of more advanced interventions that we're doing. We pause them. And instead I ask them to slow down, to go more all in on meditation, vagus nerve work, eating nourishing foods, and letting themselves cry. Letting themselves experience these emotions that we label negative, because that is how we're going to get our nervous system back in balance. Okay? And last but not least, sedentary lifestyle. So you can see, obviously, well, maybe you can tell, maybe you can't. I'm standing up right now. I have a standing desk that I work from because I work from home because I have a telemedicine practice. And so I stand for the majority of my appointments. And the reason why is what we have learned is that the amount of sitting that we're all doing is aging us very quickly. It creates a physical stress in the body. It's very damaging. It undoes, cancels out all of the fantastic exercise that we're doing if you're spending 8+ hours a day sitting. A sedentary lifestyle is a physical stressor on the body. The body is meant to stand. The body is meant to move. So sitting for prolonged periods of time is a physical stress. If you have an Apple Watch, you have no excuse. Turn on that feature that says, remind me to stand up every hour. It doesn't take a lot, okay? You don't have to have a standing desk. You don't have to stand all day. But what you can do is remind yourself at least once an hour, get up and just move around for a little bit. That's it. You take away that physical stress. All right, so regulating our nervous system, the master nerve, okay? In my mind, the master way that we're gonna balance our nervous system is getting our vagus nerve, and remember, that's what controls our parasympathetic nervous system, getting our vagus nerve active again, okay? Because what happens is when we spend our lives in this hypervigilant fight or flight state, our vagus nerve gets trained to kind of just be offline all the time. Okay, the vagus nerve is just offline, not activated, because we're certainly not safe. Right now is not a time to rest and restore. And so what I have my patients do is spend some time every single day intentionally activating the vagus nerve. It is one of the most effective ways that you can regulate your nervous system and start getting results today. And I think it's really important that we look at where the vagus nerve actually innervates. Okay, innervates means where does the vagus nerve, the little projections of the fingers of the nerves, where do they touch? Okay, you need to look at this. This is going to make so much sense to you. Okay, all of my patients that have trouble swallowing, coughing, trouble with your voice, reflux, gastrointestinal issues, please look at this graphic. Okay, so the yellow, that's the vagus nerve. And you can see up here at the top, that's what gets the back of the throat. It comes down and it controls, you can see it wraps all around the esophagus here. See, this is the esophagus. Look at that. The entire esophagus is controlled by the vagus nerve. You can see it goes into the heart. Okay, that's what slows our heart rate down. It goes into the lungs. That's what changes the size of our airways. You can see it going into the liver right here, going into the spleen and the pancreas. See all these innervations, all these fingers that go into the pancreas? Okay, so here in the stomach, that's where your stomach acid is made. Okay, so you need your vagus nerve to make stomach acid. You need your vagus nerve to make bile in the liver. You need your vagus nerve to make the pancreatic enzymes. You can see it comes down to the small intestine here, so that helps to control the peristalsis, the movement. It comes in, this is the large intestine here. Okay, so anyone struggle with diarrhea, constipation, yep, activate your vagus nerve. I promise you'll get an improvement. Okay. So what are some ways that you can activate the vagus nerve? So this is the fun part of the presentation, okay? I'm going to teach you how to activate your vagus nerve. So the first way is exercise, okay? And one of the ways that you can do this type of exercise is more restorative type exercise, okay? And I hate that we've labeled it that, but our culture just sort of views exercise as like HIIT training, CrossFit, distance running, like all these just really intense, right? Like we don't even view things like going for a walk or doing yoga or doing Tai Chi or, you know, stretching. We don't even view that as exercise. But I'm here to tell you that type of exercise is how you can activate your vagus nerve. Go for a walk outside for 30 minutes. And instead of just pumping and burning as many calories as you possibly can, how about just notice what's around you? Try to keep your heart rate under 100. You're just the simple act of moving your body. That's going to get your vagus nerve activated. Breath work. Okay, I'm going to teach you guys a couple things, okay? I want you to do it with me. You know, feel free to keep your screen off. Nobody's watching you, okay? The only person on the screen right now is me, so no one's watching you do this, okay? But we're going to do a couple things. So the easiest one out of all of them is something called square breathing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to count to 4. We're going to inhale for a count of 4. We're going to hold our breath in for a count of 4. We're going to exhale for 4, and then we're going to hold our breath out for 4. Okay? So we're going to do 3 rounds of that. All right? So we're going to take 2 inhales and exhales together first, and then I'm going to count. So I want you to breathe with me so you sort of feel how this goes. Okay? So big inhale, exhale. One more together. Inhale. Exhale. Let's begin. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Take a deep inhale. Exhale. So that's a really great way that you can activate your vagus nerve just with some simple breath work. So I have my patients do this while they're driving. Okay, you can keep your eyes open. You can breathe this way. You can do it while you're lying in bed. If you can't fall asleep, you find your mind is racing, do some square breathing. You know, just the way that I found out about square breathing is I actually learned from like this podcast. And the way that I would implement it is when I used to work in trauma and general surgery at the hospital. I would be standing waiting for some really badly injured trauma patient to come in, and everyone around me is busy and moving and, you know, getting ready. And I would stand there and it would look like I was preparing, but what I was doing was activating my vagus nerve with square breathing. Okay, because this is one of those things, no one knows that you're doing it. Okay, but it's so simple and it's so effective. So the second breathing exercise that I'm going to teach you that can activate your vagus nerve is humming on an exhale, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to take a big inhale, and your entire exhale is going to be a hum. And I don't mean that like mouth nasally, like, no. A deep, like, you know, Tibetan monk hum. Hum. Because when you hum, you're vibrating your throat. You're vibrating this part of your chest here. And if you can think back to that graphic I just showed you with the vagus nerve coming down and wrapping around, that vibration actually activates the vagus nerve. And because you're slowing down your exhale, that nice slow exhale also activates the vagus nerve. So it's very simple. Okay, do a couple with me, okay? Okay, so that's how you do it. And my exhale is really long. I've obviously been doing this for quite some time, but do whatever feels comfortable for you. The whole point is to hum deeply here in your chest and for your exhale to be longer duration than your inhale. So a nice small inhale and then hum on the full exhale. Okay. Another way is with cold therapy. So things like cold showers, taking an ice pack and putting it right here in the center of your chest on your breastbone. Please don't burn your skin. Putting your face in cold water. Those are all ways to quickly activate your vagus nerve. It sounds like it wouldn't because it would be shocking, but it actually is one of the fastest ways to activate your vagus nerve. So what I usually tell my patients to do that suffer from panic and anxiety is when I tell them whenever you have that episode of panic that comes on, go to your freezer, get an ice pack and put it on your chest right here on your breastbone, and then do some of those breathing activities. It will pull you out of that anxiety. You have to trust it though, okay? Give it a try. Another thing is yoga. Okay, so yoga is a really great way to activate your vagus nerve because you're doing intentional breathing and movement and stretching and moving the body in a way that's very restorative and signals to the body that we are safe. Because remember, the body has to feel safe if it's going to get that parasympathetic nervous system online. Next is meditation. Everyone should be meditating. And I'm not talking about meditation where you see in the movies where you have a Buddhist monk who's like floating and, out, experiencing all of these like psychedelic things. No. I'm talking about you get whatever meditation app you want on your phone. Calm, Insight Timer, Headspace, Just Breathe. It doesn't really matter. Use YouTube, okay? Do a guided meditation every single day. This will help to regulate your nervous system. It only takes a few minutes. My patients start with 2 to 5 minutes in the beginning. We slowly build up to 10 or 15. If you start doing this every single day, you're going to start seeing the effects of it, and you're going to want to meditate every day. Just keep in mind with meditation, most people think that they should sit down and have a clear mind, and then they get frustrated and quit because they're not good at meditation. That is not the way that it's supposed to be. We would never ask the heart to stop beating, so we shouldn't ask the brain to stop thinking. Whenever you're in meditation, especially if you're doing a guided meditation, it's going to direct you to paying attention to your body, maybe doing a body scan, or paying attention to your breathing, or doing a special type of breathing while you're meditating. What you're doing is you're focusing your mind on being in the body, and that is being fully present in the moment right now. Because if you're focusing on your breath, if you're following your inhale and exhale, you are unable to plan for the future. You are unable to worry about the past. You will only be right here in your body right now. And that signals to the body that we are safe. Okay? Laughter. So this goes back with the socializing thing, okay? So sometimes I'll ask my patients to, go watch their favorite comedian or a comedy special, or, find something that makes them laugh, because laughter activates our parasympathetic nervous system. Gargling. This is another easy one that you can do to drastically improve your sleep. Gargling water, salt water, mouthwash, whatever you want to use right before you go to bed activates the vagus nerve. Remember, the vagus nerve starts in, up here in the top of the throat. So when you're, before you go to bed, that vibration back there activates the vagus nerve. And you'll have to do it 30 seconds or, however long you can tolerate it. Okay, so go back and review that the mouth rinse that we shared with the Himalayan sea salt. Make some of that, and then every night before you go to bed, gargle. Okay. Next is singing. This is one that I have found recently that honestly has totally changed my nervous system. I'm noticing the effects, and it's been fantastic. Singing is a great way to activate the vagus nerve. It just works. I have a group that I follow that actually has really helped me get back into singing and finding my voice again. I am not a good singer by any stretch of the imagination. Please do not misunderstand me. I just do it for my health. So there's a group called Beautiful Chorus. If you go on Spotify, iTunes, whatever, and you just type in Beautiful Chorus, you will see they have endless amounts of songs. And the way that they do it is they're very chant-like, and so they're very easy to learn the words and just follow along. So put your headphones in, just sing along with Beautiful Chorus. Sing along to whatever you want to, okay? All of these vibratory things that you're doing in the throat and in the neck, that's all activating your vagus nerve, okay?